Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming back to Main Event. This is your main event of Main Event. Take your shots. Anyway, we got the Undisputed Era versus Moustache Mountain, a very dominating performance. But I will not spoil the ending of this match. I just want you guys to sit and enjoy it while I tell you guys a little bit of a story. As you can tell from the title, this video is a very special commentary to commemorate my 10 years now as a wrestling fan. My first experience watching wrestling was way back in 2010. I don't know if it was shortly before or shortly after the Royal Rumble that year, which is why this video just happens to be in a great spot considering that the Royal Rumble is this weekend. So it was really bizarre because I don't know what happened. My sister wanted to watch wrestling because her friend was telling her about it and she thought it sounded cool. She was like, "Oh, let's watch wrestling, blah blah blah." I don't know what the fuck. I didn't want to watch wrestling. I either wanted to watch like some sort of sports. I think like there was a hockey game on that day or the Knicks were on. And I wanted to watch that, which is punishment itself. But regardless, anyway. But, I watched it for 15 minutes, and I remember it to this day. It was an opening segment to Friday Night SmackDown, and it was CM Punk and the Shredded Society, Luke Gallows and Serena, and they had just recently shaved Serena's head, if I remember correctly, and, Triple H was clowning CM Punk in the ring for whatever reason Triple H was on SmackDown. And Triple H is just clowning CM Punk, saying, his beard looks awful, and he has like a fucking squirrel on his face, blah, blah, blah. Serena is like Britney Spears, all that bullshit. From that point forward, I just didn't give a shit. I just went somewhere else. I think I saw a match between I don't know who it was. I don't know if it was R-Truth and someone, and I think I maybe saw John Morrison in a match, but I was just like, fuck this. This is stupid. And I guess, my sister continued to watch it for a period of time, and, I figured, what, this is like a bonding opportunity for me and her. I'll watch this bullshit with her. So I was like, "Hey, Tor, are we going to watch," my sister's name is Victoria. "Hey, Tor, are we going to watch, SmackDown tonight?" She's like, "Oh, yeah, I forgot it was on." I think at this point she already realized that it wasn't for her and it was stupid, but for some reason in my head it was kind of enjoyable to watch. As time goes on though, it really was enjoyable for watch. I would never miss a Friday Night SmackDown. And if I did, it was because SmackDown at the time was on the CW, and oftentimes they would be blocked out to a later time slot because the Yankees would be on till late at night sometimes, so I wouldn't really be watching SmackDown until 11, 12 at night, which is ridiculous for a kid my age, 10 years ago. I'm 22 now. I was 12 at the time, so I never thought to stay up that fucking late. And, the Royal Rumble comes and goes. I start to really get not the Royal Rumble, but Edge comes back in the Royal Rumble, comes back and wins it after, this massive Achilles heel injury. And I had no fucking clue who Edge was. All I saw was that they kept panning to this guy with long blonde hair who came back from an injury apparently. And I'm saying to myself, I don't give a fuck about this guy. I want to see the match that's in the ring. The camera kept panning to Edge. Over time, of course, Edge began to be one of my favorite SmackDown wrestler, not just my favorite SmackDown wrestler, but my favorite wrestler of all time, and still is to this day my favorite wrestler of all time. And I basically, after that point, watched the end of Edge's career from, when he came back from his Achilles heel all the way to, all the way to his retirement and after WrestleMania 2011. So it's surreal to me that it's been this long being a fan of wrestling, and I've seen it. I feel like I've seen it all at this point. 10 years of watching wrestling, you feel like you've seen it all in the world because there's so much shit that is either redone or done poorly. Of course, I was around for the infamous, CM Punk 2011 Summer of Punk, which again really pushed me to be a CM Punk fan, and I really wasn't a big fan of CM Punk when I started watching. But as time went on, I actually really respected the guy for the in-ring thing, and I guess his whole face turn really cemented him as a top in my book. Then comes, though, Punk leaving, which really broke my heart. And then at this point in time, Daniel Bryan was really on the height of his career going into WrestleMania 30, it was just so insane. I mean, I can't believe, looking back now, in the 10 years I've been watching wrestling, I've been watching probably some of the biggest storylines that ever take place in wrestling. Stuff like, the Summer of Punk in 2011, basically Punk's historic at the time title reign of the modern era, which has since been broken, to Daniel Bryan's storyline and so many other storylines after that. I've been exposing at some point, I think shortly after my exposure to WWE, I branched out to TNA, which I heard was a thing on Spike, and I liked watching Spike at the time. So I was like, I think it was like a year or two after this point. So when I started watching, so I would watch Impact, and I was like, I liked Impact. I didn't think it was as good as WWE at the time, but then again, what the fuck did I know? Now I think they're probably, despite all the issues they've had, they're probably one of the better. They're probably one of the better companies, smaller companies out there. Of course, I branched off to a lot of other wrestling companies. When Ring of Honor came to my area for television in 2015, it was so fucking cool. Like, finally, something new to watch. And I fell in love with Ring of Honor. Nowadays, they're not really on my good graces because of just how shit the company is run and how shit their actual product is. And it's a damn shame because they were probably one of my favorite companies for a year or two before things started going downhill for them. All Elite Wrestling, something everyone's talking about now. I finally lived long enough to see a possible long-term contender for WWE, whether people want to admit it or not. In the past 10 years of me watching wrestling, I've even smartened myself up to the history of the business, and I don't want to call myself a mark in that regard, but I firmly believe that if you're going to watch wrestling, you should probably watch a decent amount of the history. Stuff like the Monday Night War, everything with WCW and WWE, all the great storylines of the past, all the shit from the 80s, good or bad. I don't know what it is, man. It's just like, to sum it all up, I mean, there was a point in my life where I was in a really dark time, and I just didn't know if as corny as this may sound to some, but as serious as it is to others, I just didn't know if I found enjoyment out of life anymore. And when that time came where I kind of wanted to, sort of end it all, wrestling was that one thing that kept me happy. It was always the one thing, no matter what company it was, and how bad it would be at times. It was always that one thing that I would watch that would just make me happy. And if I didn't have that, so I kind of credit wrestling to what saved my life in a lot of regards. Because if I didn't have something to look forward to, odds are I might not be talking to you guys at this point in time now. So that's just what I wanted to tell you guys today, is that 10 years being a wrestling fan, and regarding to the wrestling product, no matter what you watch, it's something that I truly enjoy, and I hope it continues to flourish in the many years to come. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, Undisputed Era is your victor. This has been Ed0626, telling you my story of being a wrestling fan for the last 10 years. I'll see you guys on the next episode of EBCW. Have a great day, and peace out.